So the proposed 2% increase in the value-added tax has sparked widespread debate. The Tax Justice South Africa argues that the government could raise the same amount of revenue by tackling the illegal cigarette trade instead. A study by Oxford Economics revealed that South Africa lost around 27.1 billion rand in tax revenue due to the illicit cigarettes in 2022 alone. This suggests that clamping down on criminal cigarette syndicates could generate nearly as much income as the VAT hike would, without adding to the cost of living burden for millions of South Africans. To unpack this further, we are now joined by the Director of Tax Justice South Africa, Andy Mashaile. Andy, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Well, it goes without saying that South Africa is losing money from whether we speak about the illicit financial flows or even illicit cigarette trade. But the point is, how do you get to a point where you are able actually to generate money from cigarettes and also deal with the illicit cigarette smuggling?
We know who's manufacturing. Good morning to you, my brother, and your heavyweight champion viewers. We know who is manufacturing these illegal cigarettes. Some of them have been arrested. Some of them are attending court cases as we speak. One, two, we need to establish specialized illicit trade courts that deal specifically with issues of this nature. Three, we have the asset forfeiture unit that we must use effectively. I'm now talking of law enforcement agencies that will ensure, one, that the monies that these people generate illicitly, so enriching their pockets, comes into the fiscals. We also know that, as SARS was saying, they need to have cameras in those areas where there is manufacturing. It will help both you and I, Aldrin, to ensure that the monies that come into their pockets as a result of sales of the product are the same monies that will be taxed, and that tax will be used by the South African Treasury as well as revenue services. The drivers, amongst others, are weak judicial systems that lead, and law enforcement that lead to these people not paying tax. Aldrin, if they sell a pack of cigarettes at 20 rands, around 20 rands, and tax per pack of cigarettes is 20 rand something cents, it means that they are not paying tax. There is a further crime of tax evasion that must be tackled, so that revenue must come in from the proceeds of these satanic illicit trades.
Yeah, you mentioned that suggestion coming from SARS to install CCTV footage or CCTV cameras at the manufacturing plants of cigarettes, but that matter ended up before the courts, and the court said, no, you can't do that.
I think it would be better for us to explore better revenues, and or by studying that court decision, finding out why is it that the court arrived at that decision, and then pursuing other means to ensure that we know how many cigarettes, we meaning the country, we know how many cigarettes are being produced, particularly by the illicit manufacturers. Your legal manufacturers would not be a serious concern for me where I am seated from, because we know that we are taxing one brand A, B, C, D, E, F, X, Y, Z. We're taxing them on that pack of cigarettes, and that money goes into the coffers of the state. The ones that we must deal with are the illicit trade manufacturers and producers.
Yeah, so here are we also speaking about cigarettes that are being smuggled into the country illegally?
Yes. Remember, my brother, the transnational organized crime syndicates have targeted South Africa because of what I mentioned earlier on, corrupt and weakness in law enforcement, as well as corruption and weak law enforcement and our judicial systems that have made things so easy for those transnational organized criminals to send these fish and chips brands that you and I see, the boxes thereof discarded in the streets. when these transnational organized crime take their products into South Africa, it becomes so easy for smuggling for them to benefit maximally and handsomely so because of no harsh punishment and less threat to them, less risk to them of punishment.
Yeah, and then finally from the industry, what do you think then should be happening from their perspective, considering that they are also stakeholders in all of this?
They either come to the table and engage government and get registered properly and pay their due the legal way and the right way so that we don't have the shortfall that we have in terms of the collection of taxes and revenue. And by the way, Aldrin, this revenue that gets stolen by the illicit producers of this product gets converted into Bitcoin and thrown into the deep web and dark web and gets sent out in other instances to go and finance the acts of terror and terrorist activities. Hence, we find ourselves on grey listing as a result by FATF. And also, that money, there's bulk cash that gets being transported out of our country as a result of these illicit cigarettes and these illicit value chains that operate with impunity and stealing the much desired revenue by our tax officials and authorities as well as the treasury.
Thank you so much for your time. Andy Mashaile is the Director for the Tax Justice South Africa on what they are proposing is deal with illegal cigarettes and also the illegal cigarette smuggling, and then we'll be able to plug that hole the Treasury wants to plug on that 2% VAT increase from 15% to 17%. What's your take on it? At Newzroom 405, you can leave us a comment there.